Hello and welcome to an episode of Historically Marked. I am Jason in Bond County, rural Bond County, Illinois, and about 6 miles southwest of Greenville, Illinois, and not too far from Pocahontas and other smaller communities. But this is a site of one of 3 original forts that were built here in Bond County during the early 1800s. This served as an important part of war during the War of 1812, as attacks by Indians were here, and I'll tell you more about that. Plus, we're also going to be visiting just the outside of the American Farm Heritage Museum in Greenville, Illinois, where an actual reconstruction of the fort is at. And this is the actual site of Hill's Fort. As you can see, it is surrounded by farmland. Speaking of which, in order to access this place, you really got to drive through a very rural-ish, unpaved road, and there is a county road just up ahead where all those trees are, if you can see them, or that barn, I guess. But this is where you go, and they do have a parking area, and I apologize for the wind, but Hill's Fort did play an important part in the opening of the Northwest Territory, making the fort a significant part of Bond County heritage. Bond County did not become incorporated or did not become a county until 1817, and this was believed to have been built, historians believe, 1806. And 3 separate Indian attacks have occurred at this spot, and of course that's the memorial. And this was actually left abandoned for many centuries and in decay. But it wasn't until October 2001 when an archaeology student by the name of Jenny Simpson, with U.S. Corps of Engineers assistance, discovered the original Hill's Fort site. The British made alliances with various Indian tribes, encouraging and supporting attacks on settlers here in Bond County. The increasing hostilities on the vast frontier were a leading cause of the War of 1812 with Great Britain, lasting until February of 1815. And like I said, 3 separate Indian attacks are associated with Hill's Fort. One of them I showed you in an earlier video at the Cox family cabin north of Pocahontas on June 2nd, 1811. In August 1812, Henry Cox and his son were killed at their cabin site on Beaver Creek. On September 9th, 1814, 13 rangers and civilians were bushwhacked outside the fort. 4 were killed and 3 injured. Bond County was created in 1817, and it was named for Illinois' first governor, Shadrach Bond. The legislature fixed Hill's Fort as the temporary county seat, which would later go to Greenville, which we're going to visit later in this video. At that time, the boundaries of Bond County were immense, and including portions of today's Clinton and Fayette counties that were south and east, and north to the shores of Lake Superior. Yeah, I kid you not, where, as we all know, present-day Wisconsin came. But earliest records are preserved from Hill's Fort and include court and marriage dockets. The Bond County seat was moved to Perrysville later, and in 1821 it was moved to Greenville, like I said. But again, this fort, it was abandoned, it was no longer useful, and I'm going to take you to the reconstruction of the site, which is in outside Greenville at that Farm Heritage Museum. But before I do that, I'm just going to take a look at this memorial here. And there's a plaque put up by the Daughters of the American Revolution, October 1916. I do not know. Now, like I said, this was discovered in 2001, but I don't know, maybe the plaque went missing. Maybe it was covered by trees or something, or whoever owned the land all this time didn't really care too much for it. But evidently, whoever owns this land did let them check this place out just to kind of look around for historical purposes. But nicely done here are the 4, and they're going to be mentioned on that plaque that I read later on in this video. That's William Grotz, John Journey, and William Pruitt and Robert Lynn. And I really like that they keep this place mowed. So, I mean, anybody can come out here and visit it, but unfortunately not a lot of people realize this place exists and how important it was during the War of 1812. All right, next up, I'm going to the American Farm Heritage Museum, just up that way. It's about 6 miles. Here we go. So behind the American Farm Heritage Museum in outside Greenville, Illinois, is this reconstructed hill fort. Circa 1808, there's a plaque outside, and even though the museum is technically closed, they have very limited hours, and I'm here on a Saturday, and apparently they just closed 45 minutes ago. But I hope that doesn't stop me from browsing the grounds. That is, the museum is actually like a lot of parts to it, but I'm gonna go ahead and look around if they'll let me. So here is the entrance, and there's a plaque here, as I said. The Defense of Hills Fort, in honor of those brave pioneers who sought refuge and fought valiantly against the attacking Native Americans near Hills Fort on the foggy morning of September 9th, 1814. After being alerted to the hostile presence, 13 men left the fort to scout. They rode into an ambush less than a half mile from the fort. 4 men lost their lives and 3 were wounded. And lists here the names of the scouting party, those who were left defending the fort. And it has some stories, it's not just names. But this was placed by the Kaskaskia Chapter USD 1812, Illinois Society of the War of 1812, and Illinois War of 1812 Bicentennial Commission. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and look around for a little bit. It's nicely done. Wow. And I see another plaque over there. It's got doors. So cool. So now I'm approaching that plaque, and it looks like it tells the whole history of the fort, put up by the Ninian Edwards chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution in 2011. Hills Fort, a War of 1812 era fort that stood on the western perimeter of the territory of Illinois, was located 6 miles southwest of this spot. A reconstruction of the original fort is located here at the Farm Heritage Museum. On September 9th, 1814, a battle occurred between 13 Illinois Rangers and civilians and a large party of approximately 80 Indians just outside Hills Fort. John Journey, Robert Lynn, William Grotz, and William Pruitt were killed in this ambush. Thomas Higgins put himself in harm's way in order to save the life of his wounded comrade, William Burgess, thereby gaining notoriety as an Indian fighter. Lydia Pursley grabbed a horse and a gun and rode out to aid Higgins, who was injured. Spurred by her action, others joined her in her successful rescue of Thomas Higgins. Hills Fort was constructed around the cabins built by Isaac Hill for his survey party. These improvements were sold to David White in 1811. Bond County was formed in 1817 with Hills Fort serving as the original county seat. And again, yeah, this was placed by the Daughters of the American Revolution. Very interesting stuff. And of course, I can't go in any of these places, but it looks like they have like a little bed and a stairway in there. And of course, candles. But yeah, one of these Saturdays, I'm definitely going to have to make it out here in the daytime. Reportedly, there's a lot of people here, and a lot of my travel vlogging friends have done videos here. So don't be surprised to see me here sometime. All right, thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Historically Marked. I am Jason in rural Bond County, Illinois, just at the site of Hills Fort. Signing off.